The sun's really shining outside today. Lots of people outside on the trails and stuff too. And with that in mind, what did I read today? How about this first one? Sounds like more stories of people using drones in a bad way, apparently to smuggle weapons and all that. I find it always interesting to see what kind of hardware they're using. This one here says, IDF says it foiled weapons smuggling attempt from Egypt using drone. Do all those guns actually fit that box? It seems like it's too long anyways from the picture with the way it's angled. It says the IDF says it foiled another attempt to smuggle weapons into Israel from Egypt using a drone today. The drone had been identified crossing the border from Egypt into Israel before it was downed. Troops located the drone, which was found to be ferrying 10 rifles, the military says, adding that the contraband and drone were handed over to the police. In the past year, there have been frequent attempts to bring weapons and drugs over the Egyptian border using drones. There have also been attempts to smuggle similar contraband from Israel into Gaza using drones. It makes me wonder how difficult it is actually for people to actually track drones like these still. I would imagine they'd be sending out signals everywhere in general. Granted, they're smaller than, say, a huge plane, but yeah, again, I would think you'd still be able to track them fairly easily anyways. Although with that in mind, how about this one with people using drones in a good way? I've heard of this before, where people try to use drones to reforest areas. This one says, drones to scatter seeds over wildfire damaged land. Loch Aber Nature Restoration Partnership will use volunteers to collect seeds before they are dispersed over burnt grounds on Glunick Estate. And their goal in general is to restore, they say here, natural habitats in the next 50 years. I remember there were some other examples I read of forests that were completely destroyed, for example, but then after a few years they just, I guess, left it alone, dumped a bunch of things like orange peels and all that, I believe, and then years later, holy smokes, like the whole thing just recovered. So I would imagine that's what they're hoping for this anyways, in terms of seeding with the drones and all. Must make it more efficient than having a regular person if that's what they would normally do. Although with that in mind, in terms of things like wildfire, as you know, here in Canada, there's that huge controversy where in Nova Scotia, they're banning people from hiking in the woods, for example, issuing $25,000 plus fines for it. Well, how about this? Apparently in New Brunswick, they're now telling people stay away from the woods as well. This one says New Brunswickers are being asked to stay out of the woods, but what does it look like? So apparently the New Brunswick government has banned hiking on all crown land due to extremely dry conditions and active wildfires. And the ban includes, for example, hiking, fishing, camping, driving into the woods, and using trail systems, with camping only permitted in designated campgrounds. So with that, various areas have closed down their trails and so forth, although from what I'm reading, the fine isn't as extreme like the $25,000 when you read in Nova Scotia. Apparently the minimum currently is $75, but that is only pertaining to actual fire-related violations according to this, not just walking in general, because apparently people with private land, they're recommended to follow the same procedure, but there's no obligation, for example, to actually do it. Doesn't that feel like it's too much of a coincidence where one place does this and another place copies the exact same thing? To me, it feels like that situation where it's clearly you sit there, you don't say anything, you justify this saying, oh, it makes sense and so forth. You're giving them basically permission to keep doing stuff like this, which makes absolutely no sense. You should be targeting, for example, like here, they say the fines are only for people who do fire-related violations and all that. You target those specific actions, not just people walking in general. That's crazy. I know there's a lot of people creating like infographics and memes to kind of, I guess, mock the decisions. For example, they list things such as how in a lot of provinces, the primary wildfire causes are things, let's just say like lightning, for example. And then there's this one place, no, magically for them is hiking and walking. I think the scarier thing is, I usually expect people, let's just say a government official, to make dumb decisions, for example, where in so many cases they have no knowledge of the actual stuff that they're actually regulating in. But the scarier thing is the average people who just say, okay, it makes sense. Like, that's kind of crazy in my opinion. If people can't actually put the pieces together, think about it rationally, and see whether or not it makes sense or not. And this was kind of random news, but it was going around online a lot. Apparently, there is butter that is made with just carbon dioxide, and people are suggesting you should switch to this. This one here says, Bill Gates backed startup making butter from carbon. So they say here, what if your morning toast could help save the planet? a Bill Gates-backed startup called Savor is making that possible with a revolutionary butter made from carbon dioxide, not cows, plants, or oils. This game-changing product, crafted in a lab, looks, tastes, and spreads like butter we all love, but is created without the environmental toll of traditional farming. Savor is already partnering with top restaurants, bakeries, and food suppliers to bring this sustainable spread to kitchens, with plans to hit store shelves by 2027. That's kind of interesting if they actually do this. It makes me wonder if people would like to be notified ahead of time whether they're eating, let's just say, quote, real butter or fake one. And I was trying to do a bit of research about this on how true that is. And I basically just used the AI to quickly kind of look at the ingredients, like what is needed to actually make this. So like here it lists normally for butter is just cream and salt, for example. And for this, it says for Savor's carbon-based butter ingredients, it's MLCT oil, which is what? Medium and long chain triglycerides, 100% fat synthesized from carbon dioxide, hydrogen, and oxygen, water, sunflower, lecithin, sea salt, natural flavor, and beta-carotene. So a lot of different stuff, I guess, to try to make that, but I tried to dive into, for example, okay, even though it's made with carbon and all that, is it the same thing? Because apparently some people are arguing, hey, you know everything's made of carbon, right? But that's not really the case in terms of saying it's the same thing. So obviously I don't know in depth about this stuff, but it says here, no, they're not the same. While both are high-fat spreads with similar caloric content, their fatty acid profiles, nutrient content, and metabolic effects differ. Traditional butter contains dairy-specific nutrients and cholesterol, which Savor's butter lacks. Savor's MLCT oil may offer unique benefits, but it's highly processed, synthetic product with less long-term data. And that's actually a thing too. For example, I know before people were saying eat this fake meat and all that, but I think as they're doing research, they're finding there are drawbacks, for example, and that's true for this too. There's no long-term research in terms of people digesting stuff like this, like full time, for example. And with that argument of like saying it's all carbon anyways, according to this, it says, saying both are carbon-based ignores the structural and functional differences between their fats and nutrients. It's like saying olive oil and lard are the same because both are carbon-based. They're not, due to the different fatty acid profiles and health effects. So I guess ultimately it's more research needs to be done, but people are going to be guinea pigs, I guess you could say anyways, if they're already planning to put them out in restaurants and stores and all that. I mean, it is kind of like that topic where even before, not too long ago, people were saying fat is bad, doesn't matter what it is, but then afterwards there's debate, for example, no, it's not, like certain types of fats are good for you. So that could be the case here, for example. It might look the same and taste the same, but it isn't the same. So we'll have to wait and see. Would you be, I guess, open to eating something like that full time, again, without any long-term study or anything like that? See you guys later.